Welcome to Uncommon Knowledge. I'm Peter Robinson. The Martin and Illy Anderson Senior Fellow at the Hoover Institution, Victor Davis Hanson, is a classicist and military historian. Dr. Hanson is the author of more than 12 books. His most recent volumes, Makers of Ancient Strategy, From the Persian Wars to the Fall of Rome, which Dr. Hanson edited, and The Father of Us All, War and History, Ancient and Modern, a volume of Dr. Hanson's own essays and the subject of our discussion today. Victor, for a man who has studied several thousand years of military history, a contemporary question. We'll come back to this, but in brief, is Barack Obama proving a worse or a better commander-in-chief than you had expected?
I think worse.
Worse?
Yes.
Oh, you surprised me. We will come back to that.
We come back.
All right.
Worse than some good things, some bad things, overall disappointing.
All right. Segment 1, War and This Republic. 2 quotations. First, Victor Davis Hanson in The Father of Us All, quote, "War seems to be inseparable from the human condition," close quote. Second quotation, political scientist John Mueller. "War is merely an idea, an institution like dueling or slavery that has been grafted onto human existence. Unlike breathing, eating, or sex, war is not something that is somehow required by the human condition," close quote. How is the layman to choose on the evidence between Victor Davis Hanson and John Mueller?
Well, I think I was empirical, and the latter quote was theoretical, evangelical even. He wants something to be true. I don't care whether it's, I wish it were not true, to tell you the truth, but I just look at primitive man, what anthropology and archaeology tell us about pre-civilized, pre-modern man, and then I count up the number of wars, and then I think of the enlightened republics in our memory. Athens, the Parthenon, Socrates made war 3 out of every 4 years. So did in the 5th century. 16th century Venice, same thing. United States since Vietnam. Vietnam was going to usher in a period of peace. Cold War is going to be over. That was going to issue in a public period of peace. More people have died since World War II worldwide, over 50 million than during World War II. So it's a pretty brutal, depressing, Hobbesian world that we're looking at. We don't want it to be true. But there is a happy note. We know how to mitigate the effects of war by deterrence, balance of power, military preparedness, etc.
You bring me to another, one of your basic themes in this book. From The Father of Us All, again, I'm quoting you. Americans tend to lack a basic understanding of military matters. Why?
Well, I think we're optimistic, especially in America, and the promise of the Enlightenment was with just enough money, with just enough education, we can remake the nature of man so that he acts in a logical...
But that's not the Founding Fathers. Where does that come from?
It comes probably from Rousseau, Kant, the French and British Enlightenment, Scottish Enlightenment, the idea that man is perfectible with enough education, reflection, money.
So there's an element of that is present.
There is, a puritanical element within the United States that we are going to come to this country, make a city on the hill, and make a new American man. So we were very much hopeful that America would be the exception to this brutal, bloody history in Europe. It hasn't been, unfortunately.
And so I just want to pursue that a little bit, because you are not arguing that it's modern affluence that has cosseted a couple of generations of Americans and insulated them from the nasty reality of war. Mm-hmm. You're arguing that there's a philosophical strand of perfectionability that's present at the founding and runs all the way through our history.
All the way through American history, all the way through Western civilization, through the Renaissance, all the way back to Greece and Rome. A utopian strain that, because after all, war is legalized murder, doesn't make sense. It's antithetical to civilized, polite, educated, affluent people. And there's always been a strain there that thought that they could adjudicate world tension through precursors of laws, the Hellenic protocols, pan-Mediterranean ideas, the League of Nations, etc.
Kellogg-Briand Pact.
Yeah.
But you've got 2 themes in this book, in The Father of Us All, that are, at least as I read them, in tension. The importance of military education. You lament its decline. We'll come to that. The importance of military education and the essential, fundamental unpredictability of warfare. Yes. So the obvious question is, what's the point? What difference does it make if Americans are ignorant of military history when military history can't really tell us in detail how to invade Iraq or what we should do in Afghanistan?
Military history can tell us within parameters. Let me give you one example.
Sure.
This country literally tore itself apart over legitimate questions of why we didn't have up-armored Humvees or sufficient body armor, or why we didn't. And military history would have said in a consensual society we need to adjudicate, argue, refine those questions. But it would also say to the American people, hold on. There has not been a war that America's fought when there were not gigantic lapses of organization, strategy, tactics. I'll just give you one example.
Sure.
We invade Normandy, we plan on everything, we take a year, it's successful, less than 3,500 are killed, we know the grains of sand, we know the current of the water and what happens. All these great luminaries who fought in World War I or knew of Normandy and France from previous experience, Bradley, Eisenhower, Marshall, a lot of them had been in France, not all of them, but they land. And what happens? They get in 5 miles from Omaha Beach and somebody radios back to Eisenhower, there's something called the bocage, the hedgerows. And then suddenly 80,000 Americans are killed or wounded from June 6th to the end of July. Nobody planned on it, nobody thought about it. Just imagine that it makes Iraq look like child's play. And yet that generation understood things like that happen in war, and victory goes to those not who make mistakes, but those who make the fewest mistakes and press on and learn from their lapses.